A homeless girl stood in front of the gates of the richest mansion in the city, her hair tangled, her clothes torn, her stomach empty, yet her eyes carried a strength that no one around could ignore. Inside the mansion, behind walls of gold and glass, the daughter of a billionaire cried alone, her tears silent, her heart heavy. Two worlds about to collide in a way no one could predict, two souls destined to meet in the most unexpected moment, a meeting that would challenge pride, expose truth, and change lives forever. When the billionaire finally discovered what had happened, when he saw who his daughter had chosen to learn from, his reaction left everyone stunned. This is not just a story about wealth or poverty, it is about what truly defines value in life, what makes a heart beat with meaning, and what it takes to open the eyes of someone blinded by power. But before we dive into this emotional journey, let me ask you something right now. Our channel is growing fast and our goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers as soon as possible. If you are not subscribed yet, take a second to hit that red button, because every new subscription helps us bring more powerful stories like this one. Now let us return to that moment where everything began. Imagine a girl with nothing, not even a place to sleep, not even a family to call her own, walking aimlessly through cold streets, hungry and tired, invisible to almost everyone. And on the other side, imagine a girl with everything: clothes, cars, a house filled with people who worked for her, but still no one who truly understood her, no one who looked into her eyes and saw her pain. The story you are about to hear is not fantasy, it is a mirror of how life sometimes brings together the most distant hearts. A homeless girl who carried more wisdom in her scars than in any school book, and a daughter of a billionaire who had never been taught the meaning of gratitude. The meeting of these two would ignite a chain of events leading to confrontation, revelation, and transformation. And as you listen, remember, this is not about who has money and who does not. It is about what happens when truth stands face to face with arrogance, and when love dares to enter a place where it was never welcome. So stay with me until the end, because the lesson hidden here may very well change the way you see the world. Now let us begin. Clara walked with bare feet across the cold sidewalk, her body weak, her stomach aching with hunger. She had learned to keep her head down to avoid the stares of people who passed her by, because every stare felt like a knife, reminding her that she was invisible to the world. Yet that day something pulled her steps in a new direction. She wandered close to a tall iron gate, painted black with gold edges, a place she had never dared to go before. Behind that gate rose a mansion so vast it looked like a palace, and behind its many windows she saw the faint outline of a girl sitting alone. Her name was Sophia, daughter of the billionaire Arthur Montenegro, a girl born into luxury, but trapped inside walls that felt like a prison. Sophia sat on the marble stairs of the garden, clutching her knees, tears falling silently down her face. She had everything money could buy, but in that moment, she looked like she had nothing: no joy, no comfort, no one who cared. Clara stopped watching carefully. She had learned never to interfere, never to speak unless necessary. Yet something inside her moved. She saw loneliness in Sophia's eyes, a loneliness that looked too familiar. It was the same loneliness that had chased her through nights of cold rain and hunger. Slowly, Clara walked closer, not knowing if the guards would throw her out or worse. She whispered, almost afraid to be heard, "Are you okay?" Sophia raised her head, startled. No one ever asked her that question, not even her father, not the maids, not the tutors. They only asked what she wanted to eat, what she wanted to wear, what she wanted to study, but no one ever asked, "Are you okay?" Her lips trembled. "Yes," she said softly, but her eyes betrayed her pain. Clara shook her head. "No, you are not okay. I can see it. You are just like me." Sophia blinked, confused. "Just like you? You are nothing like me. I live here in this house. You live out there in the streets." Clara smiled sadly. "Yes, our worlds are different, but pain feels the same. Hunger feels the same. Sadness feels the same." Sophia wiped her tears. She had never spoken to anyone like Clara before. There was something in her voice, something raw and honest, that broke through the walls around her heart. "What is your name?" she asked Clara. "My name is Clara." "Sophia, my name is Sophia." Clara sat down just outside the gate, her back against the iron bars. Sophia sat on the other side of the bars, facing her two girls, one poor, one rich, yet both trapped in their own cages. They talked first about simple things, about the weather, about school, about the streets. Then slowly the words grew deeper. Sophia asked what it was like to sleep outside. Clara told her of nights when the wind cut through her skin, when she had to hide behind dumpsters to stay safe, when hunger kept her awake until dawn. Sophia listened wide-eyed. She had never imagined such a life. It felt like another world, yet it was happening just outside her door. Clara in turn asked Sophia what it was like to live in a mansion, to have food every day, to never fear the rain. Sophia lowered her head. "It is not what you think. It is full of people, but empty of love. My father is always busy. My mother is gone. I am alone, surrounded by walls and silence." Clara's chest tightened. She knew that feeling too well. Loneliness was a wound money could never heal. In that first meeting, two broken souls recognized each other. Sophia secretly wished Clara could stay and talk longer. Clara wished she had the courage to reach out through the bars and hold Sophia's hand, but footsteps echoed from the House guard was approaching. Sophia jumped up and whispered, "Go quickly." Clara stood and stepped back into the shadows before the guard could see her, but as she left she turned back once more and whispered through the bars, "Remember, you are not alone." Sophia pressed her hand against the cold iron gate, her heart racing for the first time in years. She felt seen, she felt understood. That brief encounter lit a spark that would grow into something stronger, something dangerous, something powerful. It was the beginning of a bond that neither wealth nor pride could break, and as Clara disappeared back into the streets and Sophia returned to her empty mansion, both carried with them a secret hope that fate would bring them together again. Clara walked through the streets as the night fell heavy around her. The city lights flickered above, but none of them warmed her skin, none of them filled her stomach. She found a corner behind an abandoned store where the wind was a little softer and curled herself into a ball, hugging her knees to stay warm. This was not the first night she had done this. It had been years since she lost the comfort of a bed and the safety of a home. Her mother had died when Clara was just 10 years old, leaving behind nothing but a smile. She remembered in dreams her father, broken by grief and debt, disappeared soon after leaving Clara alone. She tried to survive in orphanages, but cruelty there was worse than hunger, so she ran away, and since then the streets had been her only roof. Clara remembered the early days when she still hoped someone would find her, when she still believed an adult would take her hand and say, "You are safe now." But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and no one came. Slowly she learned the laws of the street: never trust too quickly, never sleep in the same spot for too long, hide your food, hide your tears. She begged sometimes on corners, watching faces pass by. Some eyes were kind, but most were cold. People dropped coins without looking at her, as if she were invisible, and that invisibility hurt more than hunger. She learned to dig through trash bins for food, pieces of bread, half-eaten fruit, anything to silence the pain in her stomach. Yet through all this, Clara carried a strange strength inside her. She told herself every night, "I will not break, I will not give up, I will not let this city take away who I am." In her small, worn backpack, she kept her most precious possession, a diary, its cover torn, its pages yellowed with time inside. She wrote everything: her memories of her mother, her dreams of the future, her fears, her secret prayers. It was the only place where she felt heard. The diary became her voice, her anchor, her invisible friend. When nights were too cold and loneliness too sharp, she would open it and write, even if her hands trembled from the chill, even if her eyes blurred with tears. She wrote because writing kept her alive. Still, life was cruel. Sometimes Clara faced insults from strangers who mocked her for her smell, for her clothes, for her dirt. She endured nights when gangs tried to scare her away. She endured mornings when her body ached from sleeping on stone, but she never let despair when she found kindness too in small pieces. An old woman once gave her a blanket, a baker once gave her bread. Those moments reminded her that humanity still existed, even if it was rare. Clara dreamed secretly of studying, of holding books again, of learning like other children. She would watch students walk by, their uniforms neat, their faces carefree, and something inside her longed to be one of them again, to sit at a desk, to raise her hand, to answer a question. She longed for a chance, but new chances never came to girls like her, at least not until fate placed her near the gates of the mansion where Sophia cried. Clara had no idea then that her diary would one day be read out loud in the most powerful room she could imagine. She had no idea that her scars would soon become lessons for others. All she knew was that tomorrow she would wake again, hungry again, cold again, invisible, and yet still alive, holding on to hope like a fragile flame that refused to die. Sophia lived in a mansion so large it echoed with emptiness. The marble floor shone like mirrors, the chandeliers dripped with crystals, the garden stretched wider than most city blocks, and yet inside all that beauty there was silence. Sophia wandered from room to room like a ghost, her footsteps the only sound. Her father, Arthur Montenegro, was a man known by every newspaper and every television channel. His face appeared in business magazines. His speeches were quoted by politicians. His fortune was counted in billions. People called him a genius, a visionary, a titan of industry. But to Sophia, he was none of these things. To her, he was simply absent. He left early in the morning, his phone pressed to his ear, already barking orders. He returned late at night with eyes too tired to notice her presence. Sometimes he would bring gifts, jewelry, clothes, the newest phone, the most expensive toys. But Sophia learned quickly that none of it mattered. She could wear a diamond necklace, yet still feel empty. She could sleep in a bed softer than clouds, yet still feel cold. What she longed for was simple. She wanted her father to sit beside her, to ask, "How was your day, Sophia?" To listen, truly listen, but Arthur never did. He thought money solved everything in his world. Problems had prices, solutions had contracts. Even love seemed to have a cost. Sophia had no mother. Her mother had left when she was young, unable to bear the constant absence and obsession with wealth. She left Sophia behind with a promise to visit, but The visits never came, and Sophia stopped waiting. Slowly, loneliness became her closest companion. She spent her days with private tutors teaching her subjects she did not care about. She practiced piano alone in a grand hall where no one clapped when she finished. She ate meals surrounded by servants who never looked her in the eye. Sometimes she would cry in silence, her tears hidden behind locked doors. She feared showing weakness, because weakness had no place in the Montenegro family, her father's world was about power, about strength, about control. Sophia felt trapped in a golden cage, her heart heavy, her laughter rare. She looked out the windows of her mansion, often watching the city beyond the gates. She wondered what it felt like to walk free, to run down a street, without guards watching, to buy a piece of bread with her own coins, to talk to people who did not care about her name or her father. She wanted freedom, but freedom was far away, and yet destiny was bringing freedom closer to her in the form of a girl with torn shoes and a diary full of dreams. Two paths, so different, one paved with gold, the other with dust, but both leading to the same crossroads. Sophia did not know yet that the moment Clara spoke to her through the bars of the gate, her life would begin to change forever. After that first encounter, Sophia could not stop thinking about Clara. The image of the girl sitting on the other side of the iron bars haunted her mind while she practiced piano, while she studied with tutors, while she sat at the dinner table surrounded by servants. None of it felt the same anymore. She had seen something real in Clara, something raw and unfiltered, and she craved that honesty like air. The next day, Sophia slipped quietly into the garden, her eyes scanning the street beyond the gate, and there Clara was again, sitting under a tree, her knees pulled to her chest, waiting nervously, as if unsure if she should approach. Sophia rushed down the steps and whispered through the bars, "You came back." Clara nodded softly. "I wanted to see if you were all right." Sophia smiled. "For the first time in weeks, I am better now because you are here." And so their secret meetings began, sometimes at dusk, sometimes at dawn. Whenever the guards were less alert, Clara would appear outside the gate, and Sophia would run to meet her. They would sit with the cold iron bars separating them, but their hearts slowly breaking those barriers. Clara told stories about life in the streets, stories of nights when she had to run from danger, stories of kind strangers who shared food, stories of dreams she still carried. Sophia listened with wide eyes, every word pulling her closer to Clara's world. In return, Sophia told Clara about the emptiness of the mansion, about the silence of the hallways, about the gifts that never filled her heart. Clara listened with compassion, nodding her head. She knew that kind of loneliness, too. The more they talked, the stronger their bond grew. Sophia began sneaking out small pieces of bread, fruit, even warm soup wrapped in a thermos. She would pass it through the bars, and Clara would accept it with gratitude, her eyes shining with tears. No one had cared for her like that in years. Clara, in turn, taught Sophia simple things no tutor ever taught her, like how to braid her hair with her own hands, how to fold clothes neatly without a maid, how to find joy in sharing even when there was little to give. Sophia laughed, sometimes laughed until her sides ached, because Clara showed her that happiness could exist without wealth. Their friendship became a secret world of its own, hidden from the eyes of Arthur and the watchful staff, hidden like a precious jewel. Both girls clung to it fiercely, yet danger always lingered. Sophia worried constantly about being caught. She knew her father would never approve. He believed people like Clara were beneath them, unworthy of attention, but Sophia did not care. Clara made her feel alive, made her feel seen for the first time in her life, and Clara too held on to Sophia like a lifeline. Every meeting reminded her that she was not invisible, that someone cared, that someone wanted to listen. One evening, as the sky turned orange, Sophia asked Clara, "What is the thing you want most in life?" Clara paused, her hands gripping the iron bars. "I want a chance," she said softly. "A chance to study, to work, to build a life where I am more than just a shadow." Sophia's throat tightened. She wanted desperately to give that chance to her friend, but she did not know how yet. She promised Clara, "One day things will be different. I swear it." Clara smiled faintly, hope flickering in her eyes. Little did they know that promise would soon be tested in a way neither expected, for while their bond deepened, eyes around the mansion began to notice whispers among the staff grew louder. Guards exchanged suspicious glances, and one day the truth would fall straight into the hands of Arthur Montenegro, a man not known for mercy. It happened on a quiet afternoon. Sophia had rushed down to the garden, as usual, her heart racing with excitement, knowing Clara was waiting beyond the gate. She carried a small basket with bread, cheese, and apples hidden under a napkin. She wanted to surprise her friend, but what neither girl realized was that someone else had been watching. A maid had seen Sophia sneaking food away. The guard at the front gate had noticed the way the young heiress often lingered near the bars, and that day they decided to inform Arthur Montenegro. Sophia reached Clara and smiled, passing her the food through the bars. Clara's eyes lit up with gratitude. They began to talk, laughing quietly about dreams they shared, but the laughter died when a booming voice cut through the air. "What is going on here?" Sophia froze, her blood turned cold. Standing behind her was her father, tall, broad, and furious, his eyes sharp like blades. Clara stepped back, clutching the bars, her heart pounding. "Arthur, stormed forward, grabbing the basket. From Sophia's hands, his face twisted with rage. "Is this where my food is going, to the streets, to some beggar?" he roared. Clara lowered her gaze, shame burning inside her. But Sophia found courage. "Father, stop. She is not just some beggar. She is my friend." Arthur's face reddened. "Friend, do you know who you are speaking about? You are a Montenegro. You do not mix with filth like this." Sophia's hands trembled, but she stood her ground. "She is not filth. She is kind. She listens to me. She cares for me more than anyone here ever has." Arthur's jaw clenched. The guards appeared at his side. He pointed at Clara. "Get her out of here. Throw her far from my house." Clara's body shook. As the guards advanced, one grabbed her arm, roughly shoving her back into the street. She stumbled, falling to her knees. But before she could speak, Sophia screamed, "Leave her alone, please." Clara tried to stand, but the guard pushed again, until she landed hard on the ground, dirt staining her skin. Sophia rushed to the bars, tears streaming down her face. "Father, please stop." Arthur's voice thundered. "Enough, Sophia. This girl is nothing. You will forget her." Clara's chest tightened. She wanted to shout back, to defend herself, but she knew her words would only bring more anger. Instead, she stood silent, her dignity the only thing she had left. With one last look at Sophia, she whispered, "Thank you," and turned to walk away. Sophia pressed her hands against the bars, sobbing. Clara waited until she reached the corner before allowing the tears to fall, but in her rush to leave, she dropped something from her worn backpack, a small tattered diary. It fell unnoticed onto the grass near the gate. Sophia spotted it later, when her father had dragged her back inside, and the guards had returned to their posts. She picked it up carefully, holding it to her chest. Arthur, meanwhile, paced in the study, furious. He lectured his daughter about shame, about reputation, about how people like Clara only wanted money. He demanded obedience, but Sophia heard none of it. Her thoughts were with the diary, with Clara. She wanted to know her story. She wanted to hear her voice again. Even if she could not see her face, the humiliation that day burned deep. Clara felt it in her bones. Sophia felt it in her heart. Arthur believed he had ended their friendship, but he had only pushed it into a new and dangerous chapter, a chapter where secrets written on fragile pages would hold more power than all the money in his vaults. That night, Sophia could not sleep. She sat on her bed, clutching the small, torn diary she had found near the gate. Her hand shook as she opened the first page. The handwriting was messy, but tender, every word breathing pain and hope. She began to read. Clara wrote about her life with her mother, who had fallen ill years before. Clara explained how she had to grow up fast, how she worked small jobs, selling flowers, polishing shoes, washing dishes, just to buy medicine. She described the nights when her mother coughed endlessly, her body fragile and weak, and Clara sat awake, trying to comfort her even as hunger twisted in her own stomach. Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she read the words, "I promised myself I would never give up, no matter how hard it gets. I will keep studying even if the world says I do not belong." Sophia turned the page. She discovered lists of books Clara had borrowed from libraries, scribbled notes about history, mathematics, poetry. Clara's dream was clear. She wanted to learn, she wanted to teach, and she wanted to prove that being poor did not mean being worthless. Sophia whispered softly to herself, "She is smarter than anyone I know." The pages grew darker. Clara wrote about the insults thrown at her in the streets, the nights when she had nowhere safe to sleep, the fear of closing her eyes and not waking up, the pain of seeing rich children walking past her laughing, dressed in clothes she could never have. Sophia's hands trembled. She read a passage that struck her like a knife. "Today I saw the gates of the mansion again. I told myself I would not cry, but when I saw the girl with kind eyes, I felt something I cannot explain. It felt like hope. Maybe she will forget me. Maybe I am nothing, but for that moment, I felt human." Sophia pressed the diary to her chest. She whispered, "I will never forget you, Clara, never." She kept reading page after page, and she realized Clara had written lessons to herself, small notes of courage. Do not let them decide who you are. Believe in the power of kindness. Keep learning even when no one is watching. Sophia closed her eyes, hearing Clara's voice between the lines, and in that moment she decided she would fight for her friend. She would not let her father's cruelty erase the bond they shared. The diary was more than words. It was proof. It was truth hidden in fragile paper. It was Clara's soul. Sophia knew she could not ignore it. The next morning she hid the diary under her pillow, but all day her thoughts drifted back to the stories written inside the diary. Was now a secret, but also a weapon, a mystery that her father had no idea existed, and Sophia was determined to protect it. That evening the mansion glowed with golden lights. Guests filled the hall with laughter and music. The billionaire had invited partners, investors, and politicians. Everyone wore jewels and silk, while servants rushed with trays of wine. Sophia stood at the top of the staircase, her small hands clutching the diary hidden under her dress. Her heart pounded like a drum. Tonight, she would speak. Tonight, she would not stay silent. She watched her father standing tall at the center of the room, shaking hands With men who praised his empire, his cold eyes scanned the crowd, then landed on Sophia. "Come greet our guests, my daughter," he commanded, his voice sharp like glass. Sophia descended the stairs slowly, each step heavy with fear but also with fire. When she reached the bottom, all eyes turned to her. The room fell into an expectant silence. Sophia raised her voice, trembling at first, but growing stronger. "I want to tell you all about someone my father tried to erase. Her name is Clara. She is my friend. She taught me more than any school ever could." The guests whispered, confused. The billionaire's face darkened. "Stop this nonsense, Sophia," he growled, but she did not stop. She pulled out the diary and lifted it high. "This is her story, every page filled with strength, with dreams, with truth. Clara may be homeless, but she carries more dignity than the walls of this mansion." The guests gasped, some frowned, others leaned closer. Sophia opened the diary and began to read aloud Clara's words about hunger, about courage, about hope, and as she spoke the silence deepened until only her voice remained echoing against the marble walls. Her father stormed toward her, his fists clenched, but she stood her ground, trembling yet unbroken. She shouted, "You always told me power is money, but you were wrong. Power is kindness, power is truth, power is the courage to see someone's worth." When others turned away, the room erupted. Half the guests applauded, moved by her bravery. Others muttered, "Uncomfortable." The billionaire froze, his face pale with fury, but Sophia did not waver. She held the diary tighter and declared, "If you cannot see Clara's worth, then you are not the man I thought was my father." The confrontation burned like fire, the truth exposed in front of everyone. The diary no longer a secret, but a weapon of light. She had crossed a line, there was no turning back, and the whole mansion now waited to see what her father would do next. Arthur Montenegro stood frozen at the center of the hall, his eyes darting between the diary clutched in Sophia's hands and the stunned faces of the guests. He had always believed himself untouchable, a man whose money commanded respect, whose presence demanded obedience. Yet here was his daughter revealing truths he could not silence, a girl he had called filth now standing strong and fearless before him. He felt an unfamiliar sensation in his chest, shame, anger, confusion. It burned like fire. How dare she expose me? How dare she undermine my authority? The murmurs of the guests grew louder, whispers about the daughter of a billionaire standing up to her father, about the cruelty hidden behind golden walls. Arthur's face twisted in rage. He took a step forward. "I will not tolerate this, Sophia," he shouted, but she lifted her chin higher, each word dripping with conviction. "I will not be silent, father. I will not let Clara's worth be ignored. I will not let you dictate who I admire, who I respect." In that moment, Clara appeared at the edge of the hall, escorted quietly by a sympathetic servant. She held her head high, walking past the marble floors to stand beside Sophia. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. The crowd parted instinctively, giving them space. Arthur's jaw clenched. He had expected tears and fear. He had expected obedience. Instead, he found courage. He could not crush. He saw all at once: the error of his ways, the emptiness of his wealth, the cost of his absence. His heart pounded with a realization he had long avoided. For years, the world around them seemed to hold its breath. The diary in Sophia's hands trembled, but she continued to read Clara's words about nights spent in rain, about hunger, about hope, about believing in oneself even when the world says you do not belong. The voices of the guests echoed around the hall, the words striking deep into the conscience of the man who had once believed himself above reproach. Arthur stepped back, his fists falling to his sides. For the first time in decades, he felt powerless, powerless against truth, powerless against love, powerless against the courage of a girl who had nothing and yet everything. In that silence, he saw Clara not as a threat, but as a mirror reflecting all he had missed, all he had neglected. The pride that had once filled him now crumbled into dust. He reached for Sophia, but she held the diary close, shaking her head. "Father, it is not me, it is what we have ignored. It is what we have failed to see." Arthur's voice softened, almost breaking. He whispered, I did not know." He looked at Clara standing quietly beside his daughter, and for the first time he saw her as human, as worthy as anyone else in that room. The guests, watching, felt the tension dissolve into something else, awe, respect, admiration. The man who had controlled everything with money now controlled nothing. His empire was vast, but his heart had been blind. The diary lay open between the two girls, a symbol of courage, a testament to the truth. And in that moment, the richest man in the city understood that wealth was meaningless without compassion, without understanding, without seeing the value of others, even the smallest, the humblest. And as he lowered his gaze, he said softly to Clara, "I am sorry." The words fell into the hall like fragile glass, the sound carrying a weight heavier than any fortune he had amassed. Clara stood before Arthur Montenegro, her eyes steady, her hands clasped tightly, her body trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. She had never imagined standing in a room like this, facing the man who had once humiliated her, yet now there was no running, no hiding, only truth. Arthur looked down at her, his face a mixture of guilt, anger, confusion. He opened his mouth to speak, but Clara raised a hand. "Stop," she said softly but firmly. "Your money cannot erase what you have done. Your wealth cannot buy Back the nights I spent alone, hungry, scared, invisible. I am here not because of your power, but because of my own courage, because of the strength I refused to let go of. For years Arthur's shoulders sagged. He could feel the weight of every insult, every injustice, every moment he had ignored, and yet Clara did not speak with hatred. She spoke with clarity, with dignity, and in that clarity there was power more powerful than anything he had ever known. Sophia stepped closer, holding Clara's hand together. They faced the man who had held so much control, yet now held nothing. Father, Clara is not an enemy. She is my friend. She is brave. She is kind. She has taught me more than anyone else in this house. And Arthur swallowed hard, his voice breaking when he spoke. I see that now, Clara, you've shown me what I have missed, what I have neglected, what I have failed to notice. The confrontation was no longer about anger. It was about recognition. It was about admitting the truth. The guests in the room watched silently, the tension crackling like electricity as father and daughter and the girl from the streets faced each other. The diary lay open between them, a silent testament of pain, courage, and hope. Arthur stepped forward, slowly kneeling down to meet Clara at eye level, his hands trembling. He whispered, I cannot change the past, but I want to change the future. Can you forgive me? Clara looked at Sophia's expectant face. She looked back at Arthur and saw a man finally vulnerable, a man finally human. She nodded slowly. Yes, you can start by seeing me, by acknowledging me, by valuing me as I am. Arthur extended his hand, and Clara took it, hesitating for only a moment before the warmth of connection flowed between them. The room exhaled, the tension melted. The guests murmured among themselves, astonished at the transformation they had witnessed. The confrontation was over, not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. The power of truth, courage, and human dignity had prevailed, and in that single moment, the three lives intertwined in a bond stronger than fear, stronger than money, stronger than pride. Sophia squeezed Clara's hand, tears streaming down her face, and Arthur lowered his head, silently promising himself he would never let ignorance or arrogance blind him again. After the confrontation, the mansion was never the same again. Arthur Montenegro walked through its halls differently, now softer, more aware. He spoke to his staff with respect. He listened to their words. He asked questions. He learned names. He acknowledged feelings. He visited orphanages and shelters, offering not just money, but time, guidance, and mentorship. He realized that wealth without compassion was hollow. Clara continued to visit Sophia every day, sometimes in the garden, sometimes in the library, sometimes in secret corners where no one could watch. Their friendship grew deeper, stronger, and Sophia thrived. She enrolled in school again, her father agreeing to support her education, not because he wanted to control her, but because he wanted her to succeed. Her confidence soared. She excelled in subjects she had only dreamed of mastering. She laughed freely. She played. She learned the lessons Clara had taught her, the lessons of resilience, courage, and hope. Clara herself found new opportunities, doors opening as people began to see her worth. She was invited to speak at school. She tutored other children. She was no longer invisible. She was recognized not for what she lacked, but for what she gave. The diary that had once been a secret became a symbol of inspiration for the city, a story of strength and humanity shared in classrooms, in community centers, everywhere. People marveled at the courage of a girl who had nothing yet changed everything. Arthur watched both girls with a mix of pride and humility. He understood that true power came not from money, not from titles, but from love, respect, and recognition of others. He spoke to Sophia one evening. I have learned more from you and Clara than I ever learned from any deal or investment. He held her close. She smiled. I hope you will always remember, Father, that kindness and courage matter more than anything. He nodded slowly as the mansion lights glowed softly outside. Clara stood nearby, smiling, watching the family she had come to love. The city outside still bustled, unaware that three lives had shifted forever. That day, humility replaced arrogance, fear gave way to courage, and the invisible found recognition. The lessons endured long after the confrontation, fading only when hearts remained open and willing to see the value in others. And as Sophia and Clara sat together one quiet afternoon, Sophia whispered, thank you for everything. Clara shook her head. It is you who taught me the most. It is your courage, your heart, your belief that changed us all. And in that moment, they knew that life had given them more than friendship. It had given them hope, purpose, and a reminder that even in the darkest places, the light of human dignity could shine brightest. As the sun set over the city, Sophia and Clara stood on the balcony of the mansion, looking out over streets that once separated them, now connected by courage and hope. Sophia whispered, sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if we never met. Clara smiled softly. It is strange how the smallest encounter can change everything. One moment, one conversation can ripple through lives and reshape the future. She paused, letting the words settle inside them both. She added, remember that true wealth is Not measured in gold or possessions, but in the love we give, the courage we show, and the respect we hold for others. Arthur approached quietly, his presence gentle this time. He spoke not as a father demanding obedience, but as a man who had learned humility. I am proud of you both, proud of the friendship, the lessons, the courage you have shown. Sophia and Clara exchanged a glance full of understanding and gratitude, and as the night sky deepened, their reflections turned inward. Each thought of the journey, the struggles, the moments of despair, and the victories of the heart. They realized that life was fragile and precious, that empathy mattered more than power, and that the bonds we build define us more than the walls around us. Sophia turned to the camera and spoke softly to you, the viewer. Imagine what it would be like to stand up for someone, to see their worth, to change a life, even with nothing but your belief in them. Ask yourself, who in your life needs that courage? Who needs that recognition? And how you can be the light in their darkness. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of empathy and courage, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and do not forget there is another story waiting for you right now on the screen, a story that will inspire, move, and captivate just like this one. So click and continue the journey with us. Remember, your actions matter, your words matter, and your heart matters. Never underestimate the difference you can make in the world with kindness, courage, and truth.